What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trending Up. We are super pumped to be back in, I was about to say the studio, but we're not. We're in our own homes, but we're excited to be back together and dialoguing. And today we have a special episode. You know, we've gone into season 2, to go into talking to different people in the conversations. And today we're just going to be able to just react to something monumental and what is it, gravitar? I don't know. I'm trying to think of it. Ginormous, some exciting news that we have. And Edgar, I don't know if you want to just announce it to the people. If they're not watching and they don't see what we're wearing or our background, they might not know what we're talking about today. But what's going on? Why are we smiling so much? Why has this week been probably the best week of our lives outside of our marriage and you having kids?
I was gonna say, I don't know about our lives, but well, anyways, if you weren't aware, if you've been living under a rock, the Lakers just won their 17th championship, and we're super excited because for me personally, my wife and I have been together since 2012, and I always told Michelle that the Lakers are this great team. But yet since 2012, we haven't been very good.
Right.
So now, finally, after LeBron and AD came to Los Angeles, Lakers have won. They beat the Miami Heat in 6 games, so they won 4 out of 6, and have won the NBA championship. So it was a great feat. And we're super excited. I don't have my jersey on, but Sebastian does.
Come on, man.
And I think there's more to unpack here, right? Besides just
yeah. So don't tune out. Don't skip this episode. We're gonna talk about some spiritual insights that we've gained throughout this journey. But we just kind of want to just talk about it. You know, obviously we talked before. We had a whole episode of talking about Kobe and you know what happened there. It's just crazy. It was earlier this year. It feels like it's been years already because of how crazy COVID has been, right? But earlier this year, and so kind of our feelings and how we looked up to him, and you know, really loved the Lakers and all that. And so yeah, like Edgar said, man, this is an exciting time. How do you feel, man? What was the first? Walk me through that night, right? You know, so the games. This is a game. If you're new into sports, don't really know. It's the best of 7 series. So whoever wins 4 games first wins the series. Lakers were up 3-2 in game 6, right? And so what's your feelings going into this game? You know, obviously there's been a lot of talk throughout the league of like, oh, they got lucky because they didn't play the Clippers, which were the favorites going into the season. They didn't play the Bucks, which were another, which were the best, the highest seed in the NBA. You know, one of the I guess you would say the best team in the league at that point. What's your feelings, right, as you're processing this, and then you see the game begins? What's going through your mind?
Personally, I experienced a lot of excitement, but also nervousness. It's interesting how this sport, it's just a game, right? But this sport, basketball sport, really connected to my psyche. So I wasn't able to just like tune it out. And I was nervous because this is like my childhood favorite team from growing up in Los Angeles till today. And there was a real Miami Heat are a good team. They're a really good team. But obviously we were going for our favorite team, which is the Los Angeles Lakers, and I was nervous. I did not sit down the whole game. I was so nervous and so excited that I stood up with the remote control. I was muting the game during the commercials, and my wife and I were both working on homework during commercial breaks. So for me, it was exciting, but I had to be connected to the real world and taking advantage that the babies are sleeping. And that's how it was for me. So from start to finish, I was excited and nervous and like, super happy. How about for you, Sebastian? Like, how did the experience go for you?
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, obviously Friday night was game 5, which they could have, it was up 3-1, so they could have finished the series there, but we didn't watch it. We were, Saturday, we didn't watch it. So I think I was merciful so that we could enjoy it on Sunday. But man, I don't have any kids. I just have dogs. So I was screaming over here, right? So much so that at some point in the series, this was through the playoffs. whenever I watch the games, I would really get into it, especially at home if I'm alone, which is kind of out of character for a lot of people when they don't know me, right? Because I'm a 9, I'm pretty quiet. I'm not really outspoken to that extent. But man, I'm screaming at the TV. I'm shouting. I'm pumping my players up, even though they can't hear me, right? I'm a big Lakers fan, as Edgar was saying. But I have the benefit in the sense of being able to scream and be loud and not have to wake up everyone. So yeah, I was screaming, jumping up, man. And yeah, the game started and I was nervous. I was like, man, if they win this game and we go to game 7, it's gonna be scary. But I mean, we came out in this, I guess, the end of first quarter, second quarter, and ended the first half and just took a 30-point lead. And I was just like, man, overwhelmed, right? And so as the time was winding down, man, I was just like, this is it. I was so excited. And I remember looking at the clock, and Chantal, you know, if you follow her on Instagram, she documented a lot of my reactions throughout the playoffs, especially there. And as the time was clicking down and got to 0, I started crying, man. It was like, It was an ugly cry too. It was like, it was just like a lot of built up, pent up emotions, right? And just wanting to do this for Kobe and for his legacy, and obviously in all of COVID and everything that happened, right? And just being a big Lakers fan as well. Like you just want, so I'm there bawling. Chantal's like, oh no, you know, so she's hugging me. I'm like crying. So yeah, it was a very, like you were saying, right? It's crazy. And we talked about this in the Kobe episode. And I think I mentioned what my cousin had said, right? How we sometimes feel guilty when we feel someone's death or, you know, something happens that we really didn't know the person. We weren't really, we don't play for the team. We don't have any stockholder, you know, we have nothing. It's just that we're just fans. But it's crazy how much you can appreciate, or how much you feel for it, right? When your team loses, when you win. And it's just really interesting how you never know this person, but they can mean so much to you, right? So it was just, it was awesome, man. At the end of it, I'm like, man, I felt like I was in cloud 9 and just excited. Doesn't really change my reality because I don't benefit from it, right? I might lose some money because I'll probably get some gear or shirts or something. But yeah, it felt good. It felt good, man.
No, for sure. You know, it's funny because afterwards, after the Lakers won, and I was just like, I was so exhausted, I think emotionally, mentally, and physically from standing. Then Michelle was like looking at me and being like, so how do you feel? And I was just like, for me, just peace came over me, just knowing that, you know, the tension of this was done. Job is finished, right? It's been a crazy year for a lot of reasons, and it was good to bask in happiness. I think something that we need to realize in life is to enjoy the aspects of life that you can. We capitalize a lot on like negative experiences. We capitalize a lot on like what's not going right, but it's nothing bad to experience something good. And for me, it was good. I didn't cry on my wedding day, and I'm glad I didn't cry during a basketball
Chantal,
game.
Michelle would have been like, you're crying for the Lakers and not for your wedding? Like, what's going on? Like, man.
Anyways, so for me, I wish I could cry. I just couldn't. I couldn't.
You're a macho man, bro. You're not.
No, I have no. Anyways.
Yeah, I didn't think I was gonna cry either, man. It just came over me.
It just came. So what's your favorite memory for like
from the series? Man, I think from the playoffs, I think my favorite was probably AD's game winner, man. Just because, that, and then winning every series, because and I'll talk a little bit about it when we get to the spiritual lessons. But yeah, AD's game winner, man. I mean, probably I think the Nuggets were the team I was most scared of, and then then it's the Heat. I'd probably Trailblazers and then Rockets, because Rockets after game 1 we kind of figured. I mean, every team we kind of figured them out, right? But yeah, that game winner, man, I was screaming, and that's when Chantal started recording everything, right? Because she was like, "Oh, okay,
dude." So, weren't you like singing as a way to like de-stress?
I was, man. I'm wondering. I might put that in the podcast and put just some of the. Thankfully, I don't cuss, right? I haven't, it's just something that I guess we were raised with, so everything's good. But there's some moments where I was singing. I'll probably put it in the podcast here, and there'll like be a moment. Yeah, I was just because like we talked about it, right? The commentators were just one sided. It felt, as a Lakers fan, obviously, whatever team you're pulling for, any little thing you're like, okay, I can't take this. The last couple of games I was playing it in mute, so I was at some point I was listening to some podcast, I was listening to a sermon, and then. Once that finished and I was kind of nervous, I would just I was saying, Chan, it's like when you're driving and you're doing something, but you're also sometimes fidgeting your hands or something.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. It was just it was something my body was doing while I was paying attention. So I was just singing random stuff. And then I would start shouting, and she's like, "What a change!" Right? So I'm like singing, making up songs in my mind. Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun. It was fun. That was just how I kept my, since it was muted, I had to make some noise for it. So yeah. What about you? What's your favorite memory, man?
For me, one of the favorite memories was the reflection from the players at the end of the game where the Lakers won the championship. For me, it was just people being grateful for their experience in life. A lot of times life is not just about the destination, right? You've heard of that thing, right? But the experience. So for me, it was just the acceptance speeches and just the fact that that our childhood, upbringing with the Lakers, especially with the passing of Kobe, which really affected me. I was just happy for the team and for nostalgic of the past. So
that's crazy.
The beginning of Game 6 and Game 1 in this finals, where we totally decimated the other team. That was so great because you see people actually trying, and I feel like sometimes people are on autopilot mode, and that can be very dangerous. Because you just become so, I don't know, like a zombie. Those were my favorite memories.
Dude, I like that, bro. I like that. I have a couple already thoughts for like spiritual lessons, but
Well, I think a lot of people are gonna be like, wow, like I once had someone comment on my story and kind of sarcastically say, "Oh, Lakers and Jesus," right? And kind of be like, well, how do you make that connection?
Right.
And I think something that we're really capitalizing on is you can draw biblical lessons or spiritual lessons from other aspects of life. So like, I think something that we need to be down to earth as Christians, we need to be down to earth. And if you like fishing, how can you lead someone to Christ via fishing? If you like, I don't know, if you like crocheting, how can you connect that to your walk with Christ? So we find that you can, our like passion for like basketball is something that we can see how God resonates with, how you can find biblical concepts in secular activities and be able to connect with the real world. But let's talk about some Lakers stats.
Yeah, and then we'll jump into
and then we'll jump into the spiritual lessons.
Just
interconnected.
Keep tooting our horn, man. We got to. You know what's cool? One thing, a cool stat. Lakers have won a championship every decade of 2000. Wow. So 2000 they won, 2000, 2001, 2002. Which I'm going to plug in a podcast called Whistleblower, which if you're a big NBA fan, I encourage you to hear it. Yeah, Whistleblower. It talks about Tim Donahue and that whole cheating scandal and how it was most likely more than just him, right? It was a whole. And so one of those games, I think it was 2002, where the Lakers played the Kings, and it was just very, favored for the Lakers, so you just got to call it how it is. But yeah, Lakers have won in 2000. They won in 2010 with Kobe when the revenge against the Celtics. And then 2020, here we are 10 years later. It's our 17th championship. So we're tied with the Celtics for the most championships in the history. Right. Wow. Which is crazy. But some interesting thing, right? I thought this was cool because there's if you've been following NBA, a lot of trash talk between Lakers and Clippers. Clippers play actually in the same building as the Lakers, which it would be tough for me to do that because the Lakers have just dominated all throughout history. They're looking to build a new stadium, right? But as of now, they're playing in the same place. So it was just a lot of talk back and forth. They've been better in the last, I would say, 10 years compared to the Lakers. But now that LeBron and AD are here, things have changed. But they've appeared. They get this fact, right? The Lakers have now appeared in 32 finals series in their 74 years, right? That means they only missed it, that's 40 years that they didn't go in the league. That's a 43.2% chance of making the finals every year, which is crazy. That's almost 50%. Like it's either, that's crazy. The Clippers franchise record is 1,659 wins and 2,383 losses, giving them a 41% win-loss record.
Wow.
So the point is, the Lakers have a better chance of making the finals, and the Clippers have of winning a regular season
Yeah.
game.
Oh
That's
man.
crazy.
People who root for the other team are gonna dislike us, man.
Oh yeah. But it's interesting how I mean, you can make stats out of everything, right? So,
I know, right? Yes, that's
um,
yeah. Continue.
one cool
Keep on
stat:
going.
the Lakers ended the season with a 57-0 record when starting the fourth quarter with a lead. No team
Wow.
has ever done it in NBA history. So it just shows how focused you talked about it,
How
right? And
dominated, yeah,
how
dominated.
dominating they were, right? So you had some games that it was like, whoa, I don't know if this is gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
And cool thing is, Anthony Davis finished first in points scored these playoffs with 582 points, and LeBron finished second with 580 points. So the top duo, right? In that. So different stats there. But I do want to share, and then I'll let you go into kind of what spiritual, and this is kind of going into spiritualations, right? You talked about how the journey of some of the people, Dwight Howard was on Instagram Live talking about like, yo, don't give up on yourself. Remember Kevin Garnett when he finally won after leaving Minnesota for years and going to the Celtics, and he's like, everything is possible, right? You have these guys that, you look at it, they start from nothing and they end up as NBA champions, right? They're immortalized in a way, right? In a sense, in the NBA world,
I know what you mean.
in sports world. I was, so Dwight Howard is one of those guys, bounced around, really just kind of a turnaround, was in the Lakers with Kobe, didn't work out. Now he's back, wins a chip. I was just listening to a podcast this morning actually about Frank Vogel, which is the coach, the coach of the yeah. For those who don't know, he's a coach, he's a leader, first year, right? And they were talking about how he was coaching Division III basketball. Wow. And not really connected, and he had aspirations to coach in the NBA, right? The best league, the highest league, right, for basketball, and didn't know anyone, so he started writing Rick Pitino from Kentucky. I think he's a Louisville coach, right? And he would write him letters and letters and letters to, hey, just give me a chance. I'll be a walk-on. I don't care what I am. I just want to be in your staff. I think I can contribute to it. Doesn't get a letter. He gets a response saying, hey, thanks. We're not looking for anyone right now. And then he finds out that he's going to be at a basketball camp. So he does everything possible to get to that basketball camp to help others, other youth. And while there, the director of the camp introduces Rick Pitino to Frank Vogel. And he's like, yo, big fan. I'm the guy that's been writing you for the longest time, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, hey, if you're in the area, then stop by and we'll see what we can do. And Frank Vogel took that as a go and moved all of his family to that area without even a promise that something, it was just like, that's all he needed. And he went, and then he joined the staff, became a coach, and now he's coaching, and he just coached the NBA, the Lakers to an NBA Finals championship, right? So it's really cool seeing how, he was just saying how, a lot of people that are good coaches don't have the right connections, right? But it's just the hustle and determination. That's something I put on my story that I saw a video that Kobe put up, that they put up of what Kobe was saying, right? Just do what you love, and then, pursue that, and just seek it, be passionate about it, work hard to get it. And I think that just exemplifies a lot of the people on our team. I think Rondo talking about his IQ, man. How, I was listening to another podcast, Jared Dudley, another player, talking about how smart Rondo is. And it's just crazy when they break it down, and these guys give, their whole life to it, right? And another last guy is just Alex Caruso, right? He went to the Texas A&M, graduated, played pretty well there, but didn't get any contract for the NBA. But he signed a 2-way contract and played for the G League affiliate team of the Lakers. And slowly but surely started playing a couple games last year's, and this season really stepped up to the point where him and LeBron had the best, what they would say, plus or minus numbers in the league, right? Which is when they're on the court, it's the best, plus points for your team. There's really no negative. And to the point where he went from being undrafted, a nobody, to starting in Game 6 of the NBA Finals, right? In the span of a year, which is, it's just amazing to see, when you really set your mind to it, when you're in a good place, in a good location with a good team, a good structure, you're going to be good, man. So that's kind of some crazy journeys of people on this team that I think is just very encouraging for everyone watching, saying, hey, maybe I can't make it to the NBA because I'm not 6'6", but whatever my dream is, I'm going to go hustle hard to get it, right? I'm not going to give up easily. I'm going to work hard to achieve it. So what about you, man? What are some lessons you took from that? I mean, maybe not just spiritual, but just practical, right? That inspire you.
Yeah. No, for me, one of the biggest things. So I'm a pleaser. I'm a 3-1. You know, we have the
People play.
Enneagram.
Right. Check it
I'm a
out if you haven't already. Go back and hear it.
yeah. So everybody has a different personality traits, and my biggest personality trait is wanting to excel at what I do, and then serve other people. So pastoring, right? It's one of my go-to niches,
Mm-hmm.
or how you would say it.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, something that I struggle with is how to deal with negative people. Negative people
Mm.
really just bring me down and just really suck the life out of me. So something that I learned about the Lakers is that while the whole world was being negative and always
Mm-hmm.
counting out this team from winning, like in the beginning of the year, most people said that other teams were going to win the championship. There, and no
Mm.
one was counting on the Los Angeles Lakers to
Mm-hmm.
even be
Mm-hmm.
in the finals. So what we see is that while everybody's being negative, a lot of the actual team was blocking out that negativity in life. So when you are passionate about what you do, don't just be focusing on what the
Mm.
other negative people are saying around you, but keep focus on what you're working on. So for me, I is like there's haters are gonna hate, right? There's gonna be people who are negative and that are constantly going against you. And what you have to do is you have to ignore them. To a certain
Mm-hmm.
extreme, negative people have to be blocked out in your life. And that's something that for me, I'm learning as a pastor.
Yeah, that's good.
Everybody knows how to be the pastor except the pastor, right? So what I'm learning is that you have to block out certain people. Now, there is constructive criticism, and that's not what that's not what hate is, but you're gonna encounter people who
Mm-hmm.
are just constantly negative and constantly bringing you down, and you have to really focus on your
Yeah,
craft and go
that's
on.
good. That's good, bro.
Something that we need to apply in our
Mm-hmm.
walks with the Lord, because guess what? There's an enemy, right? If you're a believer, or even if you are a skeptic, there's this belief that there's like Satan. There's this evil person,
Mm-hmm.
and Satan doesn't want you to succeed. He wants you to fail, and he wants you to think about your mistakes. He wants
Mm-hmm.
you to think on how you're going to fail. But rather, God is there wanting to see you succeed, wanting
Mm-hmm.
to see you get better at what you do. And God is always encouraging before he's critical.
Yeah,
And
that's
we
good.
we need to not lose focus of that.
Yeah, that's good. I heard a podcast. I think it's, I don't know if it was Frank Vogel or someone that was talking, and they said, in their pursuit, they try not to focus on the praise because that can make you prideful and arrogant, and they don't focus on the doubt and the negativity because that can make you doubt yourself
Mm.
and not go to your potential. But it's instead of putting the work and hustle hard and really uh, let that speak for yourself. I was actually Rob Pelinka when talking about this year and stuff, right? So I thought it was very interesting, right? He's like, I'm not going to focus on the praise that we get or the
Yeah.
criticism, because those two will lead me. I'm just going to really focus on the work. And obviously that's coming more from a secular mindset. And obviously what helps us now from a Christian sense is like we focus on God and what he says, who he says we are, right? How
Yeah.
he values us. And that keeps us motivated, right? Because no matter what happens and people say about us around us, we can be like, all right, that's a good opinion of yours, but I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so that really gives me power. Yeah.
And I think that really like humbles me. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
We can see so much like biblical thoughts and thought
Mm-hmm.
process in the secular world for success.
Hmm.
Now, we want to make sure that we understand that basketball or your job isn't your idol, right? We don't want to make
Yeah. Right.
gods in our lives, but just that perspective is
Mm-hmm.
um, so needed in churches, because um, I've met Christians or Seventh Day Adventists as a pastor for the Seventh Day Adventist Church. I've met
Mm-hmm.
people who focus so much on the negativity that really
Yeah.
brings their down their optimism in life.
Mm.
And if the secular world can teach us to be more positive, wow,
Mm.
like
Yeah. We're failing.
it just
It's a rebuke. It's a rebuke.
yeah, it's a rebuke that we can learn from, like even the secular society
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so forth. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what else did you see from this Lakers season that you can apply to our walks, our trending up with
Yeah. I think one thing is Two things, right? And I'll say it and then I'll explain it if I don't forget them. But one of them is like, people are always gonna put excuses for the triumphs or successes that you do, right? And so, you get a good job or something. It's, oh, it's probably because blah, 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 right? Or, it's just, there's always gonna be something that people are criticizing. I guess we're still honing on this idea, right? Haters gonna hate. But it's just, don't mind the noise, right? It's just noise. There's gonna be people that are gonna try to discredit how hard, especially for this championship. They're like, oh, the bubble championship wasn't even that hard. It wasn't real. It doesn't count. And it's like, man, this is probably one of the toughest. I mean, players have saying this is probably the toughest because you're away from home, you're away from your normal. And so it's going to be, obviously when someone, and this is what's crazy when you don't operate in the mindset of Jesus of wanting other people to succeed more than yourself. But when you do succeed, other people that don't have that mindset of, hey, man, oh, I'm so excited for you, they're going to take it as in like, man, you're taking my opportunity away. And so it's like, man, what did you have to do? Man, you're so, blah, 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 and so trying to discredit, trying to discourage you. I don't know if you've been in situations, Edgar, where something good happens to you and you feel like you have to downplay that thing because of what people are saying, or because of what you've already had instances with people where you're like, oh, I got I'm moving to it. I got a raise. And so I got this new car, but I mean, it's cheap, it's not because we can't, we just don't know how to operate it. Not operate, but that negativity just eats us up. And it's like, we sometimes downplay the goodness of God and what he's done for us because we don't want to talk about it. Right. So,
just a comment on that is we think that humility is bringing
right. Like bringing ourselves down. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sadistic, right? It's a form of like torture, right? You
right.
kind of to hurt yourself in order to show that you're humble. And it's so antithetical to the actual belief.
Right.
So,
right.
Anyways, continue going forward.
Yeah. So it's like humility is thinking thinking of yourself less and not thinking of yourself less and not thinking less of yourself. Right. So it's like thinking more on others, but it's also not putting yourself down. Yeah. So another thing, in the eyes of others, of some, you are always going to be an underdog. Right. And are lacking in some area, right? So as pastors, man, you're just not as good as Carlton Bird from Oakwood when he preaches, or Dwight Nelson, or maybe you're just not as good as an administrator as a previous pastor, right? Or maybe other roles, right? You're not as good an artist as we had before. Your nurse work is okay, but we had another nurse that was, wherever we stand, we just seem like there's always gonna be people again that don't see our full potential or are blinded to what we can do because they're expecting us to do something else, right? And that could be very harmful if we allow that, if we meditate on that, because sometimes I think we try to fill positions or roles or do things that really God hasn't called us to do, but we're doing them because we're expected to do that. And God says, I've made you to do this, right? I created you and have you to do this. And sometimes to fit into this mold that people have for us, we are operating outside of our calling, I guess, if you want to call it that spiritual word that we use, and causing more harm for ourselves, right? And so when the guy, if we were just to be able to see ourselves in the eyes of God, he would be like, "You're more than enough." And I think that's the key there, right? How are we viewing ourselves, right? Is it through sometimes our own eyes are deceiving and we look down, like we said, right? Sadistic. We put ourselves down, or maybe it's through the eyes of others and we're never good enough. But in the eyes of God, it's like you respond and you live in light of the reality that you are loved by me and that you're more than enough. So
no, for sure. And I think we don't want to be sacrilegious, but this is a really, really important concept.
Yeah.
Is that in the eyes of God, you are loved. In the biblical perspective. Now, we want to make sure that this is clear, that your value comes from who you are, not what you've done. But in our world, we have value in what you've done, not who you are. And this is key for us to understand, because when you realize that your identity is found in being a child of God, the other attributes that may make you feel like, oh, I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, I'm successful. That is a description of your life. It's not who you are, because you can lose your career, you can lose your family, you can lose all your accomplishments, but you can never lose your status before God. So as Christians, we really need to understand that we are loved by God and make that the central theme as we grow in, understanding who God is, as we share our faith with others, may this be a foundation to our world. So don't let others be others undervalue who you are, but know your value and who God is. And this is something that the Lakers went through. Everybody was saying they weren't good, and yet they succeeded. So in our lives, may we focus on our person, our identity in Him.
Yes. Good.
And may that give us some peace.
All right, Pastor. Woo! Yeah, and beautiful, man. It's just again, we've been honing on this for I think a lot of times, right? And I think this is the key to trending up, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what you're going through, when you know who you are and whose you are and your true value from God, you can trend up in any situation. But one thing that the Lakers did, and I said this in my Instagram too, of just this theme of like that. It goes back to I think it was the 2009 finals, right? Versus 2010. 2009 versus Orlando, right? Where they were up 2-0 and they're like, Kobe was on the mic and they're asking him questions. Reporters were, and he's like, "Why aren't you happy, man? You're up 2-0." He's like, "What's there to be happy about? Job's not done. Job's not finished." And I think Laker fans and Lakers as well took that approach to series, right? Where they're like, doesn't matter if we got the second seed in the NBA, the top seed in the Western Conference, we beat X team as the series went on. Like, we're not satisfied, right? So no matter how far they got, and even though if they were breaking, sometimes some people would say not a lot, but some, they're going further than we thought they would, because some people say that they wouldn't make the playoffs. They were always saying job's not finished, right? And at the end of it, it was beautiful to be able to say job is finished, right? And just to honor the legacy of Kobe, but also to say, hey, look, man, don't give up halfway when I'm saying, like, it would have been easier for Lakers to be like, oh, we made it to the Western Conference Finals. All right, cool. That's it. And it's like, no, we want to go to the highest point where we feel we've been called, where our potential can really take us. And I think in our spiritual walk too, sometimes we get to higher position or places or location. We're like, oh, this is cool. And it's like, God's like, I want to take you beyond that. Right. I mean, Paul talks about, obviously referring to kind of heaven and what that will be like, but I still think God's plans for us are beyond anything we can imagine, right? And so living in light of that. But what's really cool about that is that even though here the Lakers had it on their responsibility and shoulders to do all the work, Jesus came to do the work that we couldn't do. And now we benefit from the work that he did, right? And so I think there's a lot of Christians and people in our churches that are walking around trying to accomplish the work that is already accomplished, right? They're trying to, like you were saying, live that sadistic life of like Martin Luther lived a bit, right? Where he's just like, what a sinner I am, whipping himself, literally doing all these penitence and stuff. And then he realized that the grace of God covers that, and he's good. Amen. And that God has done all that for him, right? So the job is finished, right? Jesus on the cross says it is finished. A beautiful reminder that it's not about our works. It's about just our responding to what he's done, accepting it on our behalf, and now living in light of that, which I think is a beautiful testimony to just how great God is. So yeah, man, job's done. In terms of Lakers, their job is done. They did it. They won the championship. And in terms of Jesus, the job is done, right? We don't have to do anything ourselves to earn our salvation. Jesus has done it all. And that's a beautiful, beautiful takeaway, I think, for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and man. This is something that we've been discussing over the last few years that we've been doing this podcast, is to focus on Christ above anything else, and following him, and making sure that your focus is truly on him. In the NBA, yes, the championship is the focus, and we're not saying that that in and of itself is like everything there is in life. But when you focus on Christ, or when the Lakers in this championship, they finish the job while keeping their focus. So never lose focus of Christ, and don't be tempted to look at conspiracies, to look at ways to get caught up on controversies that aren't necessary. Focus on Christ and keep it based. Keep it simple. Yeah, and I feel that a lot of times people get lost in the religiosity that is around, but keep your focus on Christ, and remember that the job is done, and you keep on following him as a response. I think that was really key to highlight how you said, Sebastian, that that following Christ is a response to what he's done for us.
Yeah, right. That's it, man. And so beautiful, man. Is that your takeaway there? Following Christ
that's
is
that's my
response,
takeaway.
man. That's it, man. When you look at life, like everything's easier, right? When you look at it when you look at everything you're called to do as a response rather than a necessity to be saved, it just changes your approach to it, right? So there you go, guys. Absolutely. You can take practical spiritual lessons from the Lakers winning. That's why y'all should be Laker fans, because they never disappoint like Jesus. You always end up on top. And you have the best player in the league, in the world, in Jesus Christ. Amen. So go be a Lakers fan. So thanks for joining us, guys. We hope that this was a blessing. We'll be back to our regular programming with the conversations of various individuals, but we just want to take a moment and just celebrate with you guys and just share how excited we are and proud we are of the Lakers. And excited for the future, and just grateful that this year this was a really great positive note in 2020 for us, right? In the midst of all that, it was a blessing. So thank you, guys. See you guys next episode, and just remember, continue to keep trending up. Peace.